She never thought she could love him until everything changed. Emma, a white woman born into wealth and privilege, had always lived in a world where people like her dictated the rules. She had never questioned the quiet superiority she had been taught to believe in, never challenged the prejudices woven into the fabric of her upbringing. To her, the world was divided into categories, those who belonged and those who didn't. And men like him, like Marcus, a black man with a hardened exterior and a quiet strength, belonged in the latter. She never thought she could love someone like him until everything changed. It started with a threat, a danger she never expected, a sudden shift in her world that forced her to rely on the very person she had dismissed without a second thought. What began as resentment, as cold indifference, slowly unraveled into something she couldn't control. It wasn't supposed to happen, but the lines she thought were unbreakable blurred. The man she had judged without knowing became the one she could not live without. And it all started with choice, one that would redefine everything she thought she knew about love, trust, and the boundaries she had built around her heart. The air was crisp, the kind of biting cold that settled in just before the holiday season. The streets of Beverly Hills shimmered under the glow of streetlights, their reflections bouncing off the sleek luxury cars that lined the avenue. Designer stores stood tall, their glass windows displaying the latest fashion collections meant for those who could afford extravagance without thought. Emma, a white woman in her mid-20s, stepped out of Starbucks, her designer coat draped loosely over her shoulders. The warmth of the cafe clung to her skin for a brief moment before the chill swept in, but she barely noticed. Her fingers moved swiftly over her phone screen, scrolling through a sea of gossip, viral videos, and outrage-fueled news. Her blonde hair cascaded effortlessly over her shoulders, styled to perfection, as if the world outside had no right to ruffle her composure. The headline flashing across her screen finally caught her attention. Jonathan Sterling under federal investigation. Billionaire CEO accused of insider trading and corporate fraud. She sighed, rolling her eyes before locking her phone. Her father had been all over the news for weeks, ever since the scandal broke. Insider trading, financial manipulation, terms that meant nothing to her beyond the inconvenience they caused. It wasn't like he would ever see a prison cell. He had lawyers, connections, influence. She had grown up knowing that rules were for other people, not for the Sterlings. A group of friends gathered outside a luxury boutique caught her eye, their laughter cutting to the crisp night air. Emma strolled over, slipping effortlessly into the conversation. "So, I hear your dad has an army of lawyers working on his little situation?" Lily, a brunette wrapped in a cashmere scarf, teased. Emma smirked. "Obviously. The government loves making a spectacle of powerful men, but let's be real, he'll be fine." The group chuckled, but Ryan, the only guy among them, leaned in with a smirk. "Fine, huh? What about those threats he's been getting? That's some real gangster movie stuff." Emma rolled her eyes. "Please. Some loser online thinks he can scare my dad? Give me a break." Lily flipped her hair, feigning mock concern. "I heard he hired a bodyguard for you. Like an actual professional." Emma scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Probably some guy from the streets trying to play hero." The words slipped out effortlessly, without thought. No one in the group reacted. It was just another comment, another unspoken truth in the world they lived in. To Emma, the idea of someone who wasn't from her privileged circle being responsible for her safety was almost laughable. She could already picture him. Some brute, probably covered in tattoos, wearing cheap sunglasses and an attitude. The type that didn't belong in her world, but somehow forced their way in. Ryan smirked. "Hope he's not one of those guys who takes his job too seriously. Might actually make you listen to rules." Emma laughed, shaking her head. "Not happening." The thought of some overbearing bodyguard dictating her every move was irritating at best. She didn't need protecting. She wasn't afraid. But she should have been. She had no idea that, within hours, everything she thought she knew about control, power, and trust would be shattered. That the very man she dismissed without a second thought would be the only one standing between her and death. The sound of heels clicking against marble floors echoed to the grand foyer of the Sterling estate. Emma sat on a velvet chair, tapping impatiently at her phone, eyes scanning through a stream of messages that barely held her interest. She hated the idea of this, being assigned a babysitter like some helpless child. It was humiliating, unnecessary, and a complete overreaction. Then, the heavy doors swung open. A man stepped inside, his presence commanding attention without a single word. Marcus was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with the kind of quiet confidence that only came from years of discipline. His deep brown skin contrasted against the crisp black suit that fit him perfectly, his posture straight, his expression unreadable. His sharp eyes scanned the room, assessing, calculating. Emma's gaze flickered over him once before she turned back to her phone, uninterested. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered under her breath. Marcus didn't react. He'd heard worse. Mr. Sterling stood from his seat, extending a hand. "Marcus Wright, ex-military, special ops. I expect my daughter to be your top priority." Marcus shook his hand firmly. "Understood, sir." His voice was deep, steady, unwavering. Emma sighed dramatically, tossing her phone onto the table. "Is this really necessary?" she drawled. Her father didn't look at her. "Until this situation is handled, you'll follow his instructions without question." Emma let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, that's not happening." For the first time, Marcus spoke directly to her. "Your schedule is being modified. No late nights alone, no unapproved trips. If I say we move, we move. No arguments." Emma raised a perfectly manicured brow. "And if I don't listen?" Marcus didn't blink. "Then I carry you." Her mouth parted slightly, stunned by the bluntness of his answer. Then she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You can't be serious." Marcus remained stone-faced. "Try me." The challenge hung in the air between them. Emma was used to people bending, catering to her whims. But something about Marcus told her he was different. He didn't care who she was. She didn't like that. As her father continued discussing security details with Marcus, Emma leaned toward Lily, who had stopped by to watch the whole ordeal. "Why couldn't they send someone normal?" she whispered. Lily smirked. "Normal? Or someone you could walk all over?" Emma shot her a glare. Marcus ignored their exchange, checking his watch. "Your schedule starts now. Let's go." Emma exhaled sharply. "I'm not a prisoner." Marcus turned to face her, eyes steady. "No, you're a target." The word sent a chill down her spine, but she refused to show it. Instead, she gave him a slow, mocking smile. "We'll see about that." Emma had no intention of following orders. Hours later, she slipped into a black dress, grabbed her clutch, and sent a single text to her friends. She knew exactly where she wanted to go, somewhere Marcus wouldn't dare follow. An underground club in the heart of Los Angeles, tucked beneath an abandoned warehouse. No security cameras, no rules. The kind of place where reputations could be ruined in a single night. By the time she arrived, music pounded to the walls, bodies pressed together on the dance floor. Emma ordered a drink, letting the rush of rebellion fuel her. No bodyguard, no rules. Freedom for the first 20 minutes. It worked. Then she felt it, a shift in the air, the weight of a stare. Her breath hitched as she turned, her stomach dropping. Marcus stood at the entrance, expression unreadable, scanning the room like a predator identifying its prey. How'd he find her? Before she could react, he was moving. The crowd parted effortlessly for him, and in an instant, he was there. "You have 5 seconds to walk out of here, or I carry you out." His voice was low, dangerous. Emma's heart pounded. She refused to be embarrassed like this. "I'm not leaving." A man at the bar leaned in. "She doesn't have to go if she doesn't want to." His grin was slow, lazy, too confident. Marcus barely acknowledged him. Instead, he grabbed Emma's wrist, not painfully, but firm enough to make it clear. "Now." She yanked her arm back, eyes blazing. "You don't owe me." The man at the bar laughed. Maybe she wanted to stay. In a blur, Marcus turned, his movements controlled, calculated. In one swift motion, he grabbed the man by the collar and slammed him onto the bar counter. The room went silent. Marcus leaned in close, his voice calm but lethal. "She's leaving. Now." The man swallowed hard, nodding. Marcus released him without another word. Then, without giving Emma the chance to protest, he wrapped an arm around her waist and guided her toward the exit. Emma was furious, humiliated, but as they stepped outside into the cold night air, she realized something unsettling. For the first time that night, she felt safe. The night was still, too still. The Sterling mansion, a sprawling estate of glass and steel, sat atop the hills overlooking Los Angeles, its towering gates a silent warning to outsiders. Inside, Emma lounged in the living room, scrolling absent-mindedly through her phone, her mind barely registering the headlines that still had her father's name plastered across them. Marcus stood near the entrance, his stance rigid, eyes sharp. He had been uneasy all evening, a tension brewing beneath his otherwise unreadable exterior. Emma ignored it. She had spent the past 2 days testing him, pushing boundaries, proving she didn't need a babysitter. Then the lights flickered. Before Emma could process what was happening, the entire house plunged into darkness. A second later, a deafening sound shattered the silence. Gunfire. A scream rang out from the security room, followed by the unmistakable thud of bodies hitting the floor. Emma's stomach lurched as realization struck. They were under attack. Marcus moved instantly, his instincts razor sharp. He grabbed Emma's wrist, pulling her to her feet with urgency that sent fear shooting through her veins. Move. Now. His voice was low, controlled. Emma's heart pounded. What's happening? More shots. Closer this time. Marcus didn't answer. He pulled her toward the back exit, his grip unyielding as they navigated through the shadows of the mansion. The scent of burning metal filled the air. A window shattered. Footsteps echoed. They were coming. Marcus slammed open a side door, shoving Emma ahead of him. The cold night air hit her like a slap. A black SUV sat waiting at the end of the driveway, its engine already running. Get in. Emma hesitated for half a second. Marcus grabbed the back of her neck and pushed her forward. Get in. She stumbled inside just as more bullets whizzed past, shattering the rear windshield. Marcus ducked, drawing his gun, and returned fire before sliding into the driver's seat. Tires screeched. The SUV lurched forward. The mansion disappeared in the rearview mirror, the night swallowing them whole. The drive was long, silent except for the pounding in Emma's ears. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind something new. Fear. She didn't ask where they were going. She just stared out the window as the city lights faded, replaced by dimly lit streets she had never seen before. It wasn't until Marcus pulled into a narrow alley, cutting the engine, that she finally spoke. Where are we? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He grabbed a duffel bag from the back seat and stepped out. Emma hesitated before following, the air thick with the unfamiliar scent of damp pavement and cigarette smoke. The building in front of them was nothing like the luxury she had always known. The brick was worn, the door rusted at the edges. Marcus unlocked it with ease. Inside, Emma stepped in cautiously. The space was small, barely furnished. A couch, a table, a single lamp that flickered as it came to life. She turned to face him. This is where we're staying? Marcus shut the door behind them, locking it with a swift motion. For now. Emma exhaled sharply, frustration bubbling beneath her fear. This is insane. We need to call my father. Marcus didn't flinch. No, phones are off. They could be tracking us. Emma folded her arms. So what? I'm just supposed to sit here in some rundown. Marcus cut her off with a look. You're supposed to stay alive. She fell silent. For the first time, it truly hit her. This wasn't just some inconvenience. Someone had tried to kill her tonight. She lowered herself onto the couch, pressing her hands against her temples. This is a nightmare. Marcus said nothing. He walked across the room, pulling a gun from his holster. Emma's breath hitched as he sat on the lone chair, methodically taking it apart, cleaning it with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. She watched him, her earlier annoyance slowly giving way to something else. Curiosity. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Why did you take this job? Marcus didn't look up. Your father paid. Emma narrowed her eyes. That's not what I meant. My father, She hesitated. Then, softer, "My father hates people like you." Marcus finally met her gaze. His expression was unreadable, his voice calm. "I don't work for your father. I work to keep you alive." His words settled in the space between them, heavier than she expected. She didn't know what to say to that. For the first time, Emma wasn't sure if the man sitting across from her was simply a bodyguard, or the only thing standing between her and death. The air was thick with tension, the kind that lingered in unfamiliar places. The safe house had been their world for 2 days, but tonight, Marcus decided they had to move. Supplies were running low, and they couldn't afford to stay locked inside forever. Emma followed him reluctantly, pulling her coat tighter around her as they walked through the dimly lit streets. This wasn't her world. The sidewalks were cracked, the buildings worn with age. A flickering neon sign buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows against the pavement. Marcus walked ahead, his posture relaxed but alert. He had scanned the area before stepping out, his instincts sharper than ever. Emma, on the other hand, was on edge. She hadn't stepped foot anywhere that didn't smell like expensive perfume or polished floors in years. A few blocks down, they spotted the golden arches of McDonald's glowing in the distance. Emma wrinkled her nose. "This is where we're getting food?" Marcus didn't bother looking at her. "You'll live." She rolled her eyes but said nothing, following him inside. The place was almost empty, save for a few scattered customers and a group of men loitering near the entrance. Marcus placed the order, his voice low and calm. Emma stood by the window, arms crossed, scrolling through her phone. She hadn't had service since they left, but somehow, mindless scrolling still brought her comfort. Then she felt it, the weight of eyes on her. She looked up slowly. The group of men near the entrance had turned their attention to her. 3 of them, all older, with rough faces and cruel smirks. One nudged the other and whispered something. Emma stiffened. One of them stepped closer, a slow, lazy grin spreading across his face. "Well, look what we have here." Emma swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how out of place she was. Another one chuckled. "Daddy's little princess lost?" She took a step back, pressing her back against the counter. Marcus hadn't turned around yet, too focused on the order. The first man tilted his head. "Ain't she a little too far from home?" Emma clenched her jaw. "I'm not interested. Move." The men laughed. One of them leaned in closer, his voice dropping. "No need to be rude, sweetheart. We're just being friendly." Marcus turned then. His posture didn't change. His expression remained unreadable. But something in the air shifted. The tension thickened. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't reach for his gun. He simply took a slow step forward, positioning himself between Emma and the men. She said, "Move." His voice was calm, steady. The men hesitated, exchanging glances. One of them scoffed. "Relax, man. No need to get all aggressive." Marcus didn't blink. "I'm not." Another step forward. The man closest to Emma faltered, taking a step back. The others followed. Marcus didn't need to throw a punch. He didn't need to make a scene. He didn't even need to threaten them. His presence alone was enough. The men muttered something under their breath and backed off, slipping out the door and disappearing into the night. Emma let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Marcus turned back to her, his expression unchanged. "You good?" She nodded stiffly, though she wasn't sure if she was. The food arrived. Marcus grabbed the bags and started toward the door. Emma hesitated before following. As they walked back through the streets, she found herself stealing glances at him. She had expected him to fight, to prove his strength with violence, like she had always assumed men like him did. But he hadn't. He had read the situation, handled it without a single unnecessary move. He had controlled the entire encounter without laying a hand on anyone. And for the first time, Emma realized how wrong she had been about him. The safe house was quiet, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. Emma sat on the couch, arms wrapped around herself, her mind replaying the night's events over and over. She glanced toward the kitchen, where Marcus stood at the stove, moving with a kind of effortless precision she didn't expect. The scent of something warm and familiar filled the small space. She frowned. You cook. Marcus didn't look up. Yeah. Emma leaned back, watching him. That surprises me. A pause. Then why? She hesitated. Because she had never imagined a man like him knowing how to do something so domestic. Because she had been raised to believe men like him only fit into one category. Strong, dangerous, reckless. Because, despite everything, her mind had been conditioned to assume. She didn't answer. Instead, she swallowed her pride and asked, "What are you making?" Marcus finally glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Something you'll eat." A small smirk tugged at the corner of her lips before she could stop it. For the first time since this whole thing started, she felt something shift inside her. She wasn't ready to admit it yet, but she was starting to trust him. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp pavement from the night's rain. Inside the safe house, the silence was broken only by the faint sound of metal clicking. Emma sat on the couch, watching as Marcus meticulously cleaned the gun at the kitchen table, his movements fluid and precise. She still wasn't used to this, the raw reality of his world. Everything about him, from the way he moved to the way he observed every detail, was calculated. He had the kind of presence that filled a room without needing to say a word. Emma shifted in her seat before finally speaking. "Are you ever not working?" Marcus didn't look up. "Survival isn't something you turn off." She exhaled, rubbing her arms against the cold. "Do you think I should learn?" That got his attention. He set the gun down, studying her for a long moment. "You ever held one before?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No." Marcus stood, walking toward her. He reached into his holster and pulled out his sidearm, holding it carefully before extending it toward her, grip first. "Come here." Emma swallowed, standing up slowly. She hesitated before taking the gun, surprised by its weight. Marcus stepped behind her, his chest inches from her back. His presence was warm, solid. She stiffened, but he didn't seem to notice. "Keep your stance firm. If your body is unsteady, your shot will be too." He reached out, adjusting her fingers on the grip. "Don't fight the weight. Let it ground you." His voice was steady, low. She followed his instructions, feeling the strength in her grip, the cold metal pressing against her palm. For the first time in days, she felt like she had some control. She exhaled, tension slipping from her shoulders. "I think I got it." Marcus stepped back. "We'll see." That night, Emma sat on the floor by the couch, her knees pulled up to her chest. She wasn't sure when it started, but she felt different. The past few days had changed something inside her, shifting the foundation of what she thought she knew. She glanced over at Marcus. He was seated at the table, rolling his shoulders slightly, a grimace flickering across his face. She frowned. "What's wrong?" Marcus barely acknowledged her. "Nothing." Emma stood, stepping closer. She caught the sight of a dark stain seeping through his sleeve. Blood. Her breath hitched. "You're hurt." Marcus exhaled through his nose. "It's fine." She folded her arms. "So you're just going to sit there and bleed all night?" He sighed, finally giving her a look. "I've had worse." Emma hesitated before stepping into the small kitchen. She rummaged through the cabinets, pulling out a first aid kit. "See?" Marcus arched a brow. "You know what you're doing?" She rolled her eyes. "I grew up in private schools, not in a cave. I know how to clean a wound." He didn't argue. Instead, he sat, letting her kneel beside him. She reached for his sleeve, then paused. "Can I?" For the first time, Marcus looked at her differently. He nodded. Emma carefully rolled his sleeve up, revealing the gash along his bicep. She swallowed hard. It wasn't deep, but the skin was torn, blood dark against the skin. She worked in silence, dabbing antiseptic onto a cloth before pressing it against the wound. Marcus didn't flinch. He just watched her. As she wrapped the bandage around his arm, she realized how close they were. Her fingers brushed against the skin, and for a moment, she hesitated. She looked up. His eyes met hers. Something shifted. For the first time, she wasn't seeing him as a bodyguard, or as a man from a world she had never stepped into. She was just seeing him. Her breath caught in her throat, But before she could process what was happening, a gunshot rang out. Marcus moved instantly, pushing her down as the window shattered. Emma gasped as glass rained over them. "Stay low." His voice was sharp, commanding. Emma's pulse roared in her ears as Marcus grabbed his gun, peering through the darkness. Shadows moved outside. They had found them. Marcus pulled her to her feet. "Move." Emma's legs shook, but she followed as he led her through the back exit. The air outside was cold, sharp against her skin. Another gunshot. Marcus grabbed her wrist, pulling her forward. "Run." Emma ran. Her heart pounded, her breath coming in short gasps. The alley was dark, the city beyond it just a blur of streetlights. She could hear them behind her. Heavy footsteps, voices shouting. Then Marcus grunted. Emma turned just in time to see him stagger, a hand press against his side. Blood. Marcus. He didn't stop. He grabbed her arm, shoving her toward a parked car. "Get in." Emma scrambled into the passenger seat as Marcus slid in behind the wheel. Tires screeched as he slammed his foot against the gas pedal. Bullets hit the back of the car. Emma ducked, her hands gripping the dashboard. Marcus's knuckles were white around the steering wheel. His breathing was shallow, but his focus never wavered. Emma turned to him, panic clawing at her throat. "You're hit." His jaw clenched. "I've had worse." The words were the same as before, but this time they sent a wave of fear through her. They weren't safe. For the first time, she wasn't just worried about herself. She was worried about him. The car skidded to a stop in a deserted alleyway, its tires screeching against the damp pavement. The city lights flickered in the distance, a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness that surrounded them. Marcus breathed heavily, his grip on the steering wheel tightening as blood continued to seep through his fingers. Emma's hands trembled as she turned to him, her pulse pounding in her ears. "You need a hospital." Marcus didn't respond. His jaw clenched, his focus locked onto the rear-view mirror. Shadows moved behind them. They weren't alone. A low curse escaped his lips. "They're here." Emma's breath hitched. How did they? They were always coming. His voice was steady, but his body was weakening. The sound of footsteps echoed through the alley. Heavy, unrelenting. They had no time left. Marcus reached for his gun, but his movements were slower now, weaker. Emma's eyes darted to the glove compartment. Her hands moved before her mind could process the thought. She flipped it open, fingers curling around the cold metal of the spare firearm Marcus had stashed there. She had never held a gun before, but she wasn't about to lose him. The door burst open before either of them could move. A masked man stormed in, his gun raised. Emma didn't think. She lifted the weapon with both hands, her heart slamming against her ribs. The man froze for half a second, his eyes narrowing. Marcus reacted first. With a sharp inhale, he pushed forward despite his injuries, grabbing the man by the wrist and twisting until the gun clattered to the ground. Emma stumbled back as another figure appeared in the doorway, a second attacker. This was it. Marcus was too weak to fight them both. Emma's hands shook as she lifted the gun again. Her breath was ragged, her vision blurred. The man smirked. "Put down, princess. You're not going to use that." She wanted to believe that too, but then she looked at Marcus. Blood stained his shirt, his chest rising and falling heavily as he fought to stay on his feet. He had risked everything for her. He had thrown himself between her and danger without hesitation. And for what? Because he was hired? No, because despite everything, he had chosen to protect her. Her grip tightened. She fired. The shot rang out, the recoil slamming through her arms. The man staggered back, a sharp gasp escaping him as the bullet tore through his shoulder. Emma barely processed it before Marcus took down the first attacker completely, sending him crashing to the floor. Then silence. The air was thick with the scent of sweat, metal, and adrenaline. Emma's hands trembled as she lowered the gun. Marcus leaned against the wall, his breath shallow. His strength was nearly gone. She moved toward him instantly. Marcus. His knees buckled. Emma caught him before he hit the ground, her arms wrapping around him as they collapsed together. His weight was heavy against her, his body burning with fever and exhaustion. "Stay with me." Her voice cracked, panic clawing at her throat. "Please, just stay awake." His head tilted slightly, his eyes half-lidded. "You did good." Tears burned behind her eyes. "Shut up. You need to stay awake." His hand was weak when it found hers. She hadn't realized she was holding on to him so tightly. She hadn't realized how much she needed him to survive. Her entire life, she had seen men like him as nothing more than people who existed outside her world. She had dismissed him, judged him, and yet here he was, the only person who had ever truly protected her. She wasn't supposed to feel this way, but she did. The truth crashed into her all at once. She loved him. It wasn't slow or subtle or easy. It was raw, terrifying, unforgiving, and she was losing him. "Don't close your eyes." Her voice was barely a whisper now. Marcus let out a slow exhale. "You're safe." Emma's grip tightened. "Not without you." The sirens wailed in the distance, but all she could hear was the sound of his breathing. Shallow, uneven, fading. Emma pressed her forehead against his. She wasn't going to let him go. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of the monitor beside the bed. Emma sat in the chair next to Marcus, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest as he slept. His face, usually so composed, was paler now. Exhaustion etched into every feature. He had made it through surgery. Barely. She had stayed by his side the entire time, ignoring the questions, the stares, the disapproval she knew was coming. It didn't matter, because when she had nearly lost him, the weight of her feelings had hit her like a freight train. She loved him. She had fought against it, against everything she had been taught, everything she had once believed. But love didn't care about her ignorance. It didn't care about her father's world, the unspoken rules she had blindly followed for years. Love had chosen her before she was even ready to admit it, and she wasn't going to run from it now. Jonathan Sterling stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Emma met his gaze without hesitation. "You should leave." Her voice was steady, unwavering. Her father's lips curled slightly. "You don't belong here, Emma." She exhaled sharply. "And he does." Jonathan scoffed. "That man is alive because I paid him to be. Don't mistake that for something else." Emma's fingers curled into fists. "You don't get it, do you?" She took a step forward. "He saved me, not because of your money, not because he had to. He saved me because that's the kind of man he is." Her father's expression remained cold. "I won't have my daughter embarrassing this family." Emma let out a breathless laugh, shaking her head. "This family? The same family that would rather let me die than accept the fact that a black man was the only person in my life who ever truly protected me." For the first time, Jonathan faltered. Emma's eyes burned, but she refused to blink. "You've spent your whole life pretending men like him are beneath you. But the truth is, you'll never be half the man he is." Jonathan straightened, his expression hardened. "I hope you're prepared to lose everything." Emma's pulse didn't waver. She had lost everything. Her ignorance, her blind loyalty to a world that never truly saw her. And yet, she had never felt freer. "I don't care," she said, "because I choose him." The small cafe was nothing like the high-end restaurants Emma had spent her life in. The tables were worn, the coffee served in mismatched mugs. The air smelled of fresh pastries and something warm, something real. Emma sat at the corner table, fingers wrapped around a cup of black coffee. The nerves in her stomach twisted painfully. Then the bell above the door chimed. She looked up. Marcus stepped inside, his movement slower than usual but steady. The bruises on his face had faded, but the exhaustion still lingered in his eyes. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Marcus smirked. "Took you long enough." Emma let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. A slow smile tugged at her lips. "Shut up and sit down." He did, and for the first time, there were no barriers between them. Change doesn't happen in a single moment. It's not a dramatic declaration or a sudden shift. It happens in the small, quiet moments. the ones we barely notice until they've already reshaped us. It happens when we question what we've been taught, when we challenge the beliefs we once accepted without hesitation. Emma never thought she could love someone like Marcus, not because of who he was, but because of the world she grew up in, the world that told her she shouldn't. But love doesn't follow rules. It doesn't fit into categories or care about boundaries. It's stronger than prejudice, louder than fear. And when the moment came, when she had to make a choice, it wasn't about right or wrong. It was about truth. Now it's your turn. Have you ever had a moment that changed the way you saw the world? A time when you realized that what you believed wasn't what you knew? Let's talk in the comments. Because stories like this aren't just fiction, they're real and they happen every day.